sorry, I'm back to the story that I told you guys. Anyone want to share with me what your thoughts are? Has any one of you, what do you think when you think about the fact that it's possible to, for your day at work to be impacted by your colleague's wife's best friend's husband? Anyone want to take a stab at how that might happen? So just to also let you know, we're going to talk a lot during this session. So this is just the beginning. Is it that it's too mind-boggling for you to imagine, or it's absolutely you can't even imagine? I'd love to hear that anyway still. So anyone?
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Go ahead, please.
Okay, so from what I can imagine, it means your day can be either made or marred by someone you don't even know.
For instance,
Okay, so you said your colleague's husband's best
your
friend,
colleagues, yeah, your colleague, yeah, okay, yeah, your colleague's spouse's friend's husband.
friend's husband. Okay. Colleague's friend's husband. I think that's long. Let's do your colleague's husband's friend. Okay, so if I were to do that, I would say maybe your colleague's husband's friend pissed off your colleague's husband, and it got to your colleague, and your colleague comes to work that day and is probably in a very bad mood and acts in a very um unacceptable way in quotes. That can affect your day because I mean you might not really know what happened, right? But you just feel like, oh, maybe this person is just being rude, or this person is just being aggressive for no reason, or this person is just a rude person without really without knowing what might have happened. But if it's in a good way, if your colleague's husband's friend gave your colleague's husband maybe a huge sum of money, and that made your colleague's husband very very happy, that happiness also transferred to your colleague. Your colleague comes to work and is very happy, and I mean happiness is contagious, and that makes you happy because of the way your colleague is going to act at work. I mean happiness spreads, so yeah.
Very much, Anita. That was an excellent answer. And I'm taking notes. Don't worry. You see me looking down because there's something you said that I think that, yeah, we should dig into a little bit. And it's interesting. You got the concept, which is that what happens to you might be impacted by how someone else whom you do not know feels. But if you've ever heard the phrase 6 degrees of separation, just throw in an emoji so we see, or a reaction so that we see. You've heard the phrase 6 degrees of separation, and you get it, you know. Have you guys heard that phrase before? I'm not getting a lot of reactions. So okay, so maybe after this session, if you take some time to look up 6 degrees of separation, right? What it is that the your connection, your network is at any given point in time in relation to almost anything about 6 people away. So if you're looking for something, you need to find something, you need to be connected to someone, you can talk to at least 6 people. So which means that those 6 people, if you work it back, can also impact you. So that's the same thing here. The fallback, the domino effect of someone's emotions can go that far, as far as 6 people. So yes, your colleague's friend's husband, your colleague's spouse's friend's spouse. It can just keep going far. And that's why within your circle, for each and every one of us, it's important that we are aware of our emotions. And something else you said that happiness is contagious, and that's absolutely right. Guess what else is contagious? Other emotions are contagious. Sadness is contagious. Anger is contagious. Why do you think the Bible says a soft word turns away wrath? Two angry people, what are you going to get? So yes, but that is absolutely correct, and thank you very much. So today we're going to talk about we're going to have a brief introduction to the concept of emotional intelligence. I know we hear the word a lot, and I know that when you hear it, it sounds normal. It's emotional, it's intelligence. Yeah, it's about emotions and all that. But let's do it in a, let's do it in a bit of a structured way. Normally when I'm talking about this, I do it in two parts. So you do the foundation, the structure, the base, and then you now do a little bit more in depth into it. And today, at least we will be able to do at least the structure. If we still have time, we'll take a few examples, the first part. But one thing we must know about emotional intelligence is that it is key to your success, whether as in your social sphere or your career sphere, social or your leadership. Emotional intelligence is key to your success. Okay. As with everything that we tend to do, I'm going to invite you guys to please check. So for some reason now my computer is frozen, and I really want you to move just one slide. This computer is giving me a little bit of drama today. Okay, so we'll manage it like this. All right, so wherever you are, just make sure, take a moment to be aware of whatever amenities that you need, and whatever you need for your comfort, for your welfare, for your safety. And I hope everybody has something nice to drink beside them, even though I don't, because even learning should be fun. So please just take a moment to ensure that you have something nice to drink where you are, and as we go through today. Now, normally I would do this as a normally when I'm doing this, it's a whole curriculum, like I mentioned, but we're not going to do everything. So these are some elements we're going to touch on. We're going to go from the 5 things you need to know, and those are questions. So you're going to talk a lot. What emotional intelligence is, understanding it, the impacts it may have on your career, how it's related to your IQ, whether it's fixed or can be changed, and how you can improve it. Those are some conversations we're going to have. We're going to have a quick assessment that I know we can achieve today. If you still have more time, we'll go into more, which is then you then talk about the elements, the competencies, and breaking them down, being able to tune in, and then more in-depth actions and strategies for managing your emotional intelligence. But let's keep going and see how far we can go today. Now, is emotional intelligence? I want to hear from some people what you think emotional intelligence is. What are your thoughts? What do you think emotional intelligence is? Let's go with at least 3 answers. Feel free to raise your hand, and I'll rely on Harry to help me look at who's looking to speak and all that. But what is emotional intelligence? So we need at least 3 people so that we can move on.
Okay, yeah, Benjamin. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay, from my own, the way I interpret things, we talk about emotion and intelligence. Is the ability to be aware of someone's, emotions and how to relate with the person. Get so if you look at the person's output, because I've had several challenges, there are certain times colleagues will just come to the office. His colleague is in a bad mood. At that moment, you study the person, you don't give him tasks that will compound issues. Because if you give him any tasks that will compound issues, at the end of the day, it becomes like a cat and dog. You have to quarrel with you. So that's the way I understand it. And though we wouldn't apply it, but we will not go in details in depth to to study it. Yeah. So that's just my contribution.
Thank you very much. Do we have anyone else who wants to share with us?
Yeah, hello. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Gideon. Gideon Bauer.
Yeah, Gideon, go ahead.
All right. To me, I feel emotional intelligence has to do with the ability to discover yourself, to know your capabilities, and then to be able to comport yourself in various situations, either palatable or non-palatable, and vis-a-vis relating to others in the place of work. Yeah, not necessarily place of work, anywhere you find yourself. There are times that people can be temperamental, but it's about how you respond to the situation that you are faced with. So your ability to comport yourself, even in a situation that is especially non-palatable, I see it as a emotional intelligence, even though there are more to it. But for now, let me just stop.
Very much, Gideon. Great answer as well. Let's take one more.
Okay, Enoch.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Please
Yeah,
go
good
ahead.
afternoon, Enoch.
So I think it, in my little suggestion, it might have to do more with empathy, because we kind of should be able to. I think it teaches us to put ourselves in the situation we think the other person could have been, for them to probably respond the way they are responding to the situation that we find around us. So we can support them by going ahead to understand that this person could have been in this situation for responding, and then trying to harness the best opportunities to understand things from how to go.
Thank you very much, Enoch. That's a great answer as well. And I like some of the things I've heard. You're absolutely right. I think so we had Benjamin, Gideon, and Enoch. And some of the things I heard, which we will also talk about, are that it's about, your awareness of somebody's emotions and how you relate with them. I think that theme came through. We also heard that it's about self-discovery and your ability to comport yourself. Again, how you relate with others. But when Gideon was speaking, there was something interesting he said is how you respond, and there was an example Benjamin gave about how people may come to work upset or in a bad mood, and then you can give them a task that makes them grumpy. Absolutely right. However, the task is not the problem. It's more the interaction. It's the how. So I really like that when Gideon said it's how you respond and how you give that task. When you sense that there's something, so that means you're now aware. How do you handle it? And let me also put this on the table. It's not easy because people have emotions. Guess who else has emotions? You. Each and every one of us. Human beings are emotional, relational beings. So when the person comes in with a bad mood, and you also have your own bad mood, you can imagine what may be happening. Or maybe you don't know what's going on with the person doesn't know what's going on with you, but there's got to be a way to manage it. And that's really where emotional intelligence comes in, where you're able to now take that deep breath, take a step back, and then not necessarily, and then respond appropriately in a structured and open. All right. So thank you. Those are really great answers about what emotional intelligence is. There's one of the world's greatest emotional experts. He's recognized as one of the emotional intelligence experts. I'm just going to jump this. I'll come back here. And this is Daniel Goleman. If you read the book Emotional Intelligence, he's run a lot of assessments that are used now. And he talked about some of the things we mentioned, recognizing first of all your own feelings, because leadership, the response and everything is going to start from inside you. And then those of others, right? And then, of course, for motivating yourself and then managing emotions in yourself and in your relationships. So here's why I said it's about the how earlier on. That person who has come to work in a bad mood, do you know that how you interact with them can change that bad mood for them? Even if you are not the cause, how you interact with them. Now, there's also, it's not like, you may not have, you're clearly, hopefully not the person that caused whatever is that bad mood is, right? But it may change it, not necessarily change it to good, not necessarily take away the problem 100%, but help them get back to a path of stability so that the goal and the objective of what they're there for, what you are there for is achieved. So the first thing is that it starts with you knowing and recognizing your own feelings, and then being able to recognize the feelings of others, and then how you then use them in your interactions. Who has heard the phrase, you cannot give what you do not have? Very popular saying when people are doing motivational talks and, want to sound smart, to say exactly, because you cannot give what you don't have. And that's why you have to first be able to recognize your own feelings before you can relate with someone in a manner that achieves the right in terms of emotional intelligence. But let's go back to the previous slide. When Benjamin started talking, when we asked what is emotional intelligence, said you have emotions, you have intelligence. What are emotions? Anybody? And I want us to write all the emotions we can think of in the chat box, or as many emotions as you can think of in the chat box. Let's get a few examples of emotions, or let's get plenty examples of emotions. I'm waiting for the chat to begin to fill up with different emotions. Right, we have a few coming in now. Anger, sadness, happiness, anxiety. Okay, let's get some more. Surprise, thank you. Joy, excellent. There's happiness and there's joy, right? Thank you. Disappointment, interesting. Hatred, okay. Interesting. Jealousy, wow, okay. Let's get some more. How many emotions, how many emojis are there? How many emotions do you think there are? Guilt, amazing. Thank you. Really good. Shame. Contempt. Interesting. Comparison. Okay, that's an interesting one. So a sense of comparison. Eagerness, fear. Okay, I see that. Love. Wow. Interesting how love did not come up earlier in this conversation, guys. Right? Okay. Pride. Okay. Thank you very much. And it's important to recognize this, because a lot of the time when people say, oh, that person is very emotional, feelings, depression, when people say that person is very emotional, do we normally hear this in a good way or a bad way? Hear this in a good way. Give me, when you hear somebody is very emotional, you think it's good. Okay, let's do it this way, please. If you normally hear when people are talking about someone, for instance, and they say, oh, that person is really very emotional, let me have a thumbs up if you think it's in a good way, and a thumbs down if you think it's in a bad way. So let's just see what those reactions look like on the screen. Okay, thumbs up for good, thumbs up for emotional. Being emotional is bad. Okay, so I saw bad, good. Ooh, okay, I can't even tell. Okay, I can see another bad, good. Okay, good. I can see the one that keeps going like this. I'm not sure if that's halfway. Okay, all right. So if you are in the office, let's hear this, in a corporate environment, and you're in the office and they're discussing who do we promote amongst these two candidates that we have. And someone says, candidate A is very emotional. And they don't say that about candidate B. And they talk about, Are they more likely to say, we'll promote this person who is very emotional? Very emotional. And I need us to hear that word very, very well. You say somebody is very emotional. What does that mean? So who are they more likely to promote? Candidate A, who is very emotional, or candidate B, who is not necessarily so emotional? Hey, Benjamin, I see your hand is up. Please go ahead.
I think when you talk about promotion and leadership said we want to promote such an individual that is highly emotional, definitely the office environment consists of human beings. And the way you interact with people and you address needs of people, that's where we come to empathy. How you align with the core values of the organizations. And if they see these things well displayed in you, definitely such an individual will be recommended. But if these core values are not visible in candidate B, definitely such an individual will miss it. I've seen a life situation. We've seen somebody who is on his own, he doesn't interact with anybody. No matter what you do, you go close. And when promotion came, they said, what do we promote? Okay, if we promote A, it may be too pompous. Let's give it to B. And that's how the promotion went to B. So these are ways emotions affect, promotion in the place of work.
Okay. Thank you, Benjamin. Okay, so and I just realized I'm having a lot of fun having this conversation, but let me share something with you. And it looks like I will surprise a lot of you. Benjamin, what you described seems to me to be more relational than emotional. Okay? That's the person interacts more. But it may come as a surprise to you, and to be honest, a disappointment. And most of the time, when people say somebody is very emotional, they're not saying it in a positive way. What they're saying is that that person does not really have the ability to manage their emotions. So the slightest thing, they let their emotions go. They cry, or they are just not necessarily in control. In fact, it was very recently that the world began to, in the corporate world, in the workplace now, the workplace began to recognize that, there's actually a good place for empathy. Let's bring it back. But in most leadership circles, the last thing people want to hear or to be described is as very emotional. It's different from empathy. Absolutely right. Someone just put that in the comments. Being emotional and having empathy are two different things. But I always say that we forget that having emotions is not a bad thing. We forget, and this is why I asked us to list emotions. That's crying, sadness, or anger. Those are not the only emotions. People say women are very emotional. Do they normally mean it in a good way? They say the women just cry over everything. That's what they mean. Think about it from that perspective. But we forget that happiness is an emotion, that being irritated is an emotion, that being disappointed that everything is in emotion, because we are emotional beings. We are driven by emotion. And that's why recognizing is very important. Now, another thing that often happens is people then talk about emotions, right? And then they mean several emotions. They mean some of the things we mentioned. I hope you can see the screen. I hope it's big enough for you to read. Yes, they mean fear, surprise, happiness, anger, sadness. But do you know that if you want to dig deep, and I'd encourage, we can look at an emotion wheel. Look for a feelings wheel or an emotional wheel and read a little bit about it. Under happiness, there are various things. What makes you happy? Are you just happy? Happiness is very nuanced. You might be joyful. You might actually be more optimistic. It might be driven by pride. It might be driven by courage or a feeling of power and confidence. That might be what is driving that happiness. Do you understand? We tend to look at the surface, but it's important. And on having good emotional intelligence is being able to go all the way to see it. So that when you are engaging it with it in yourself or in another person, you actually know what drives this. Because if you're dealing with the surface, you may not be solving a problem or addressing whatever is going on. You need to know what's underneath. And like we all agree, sometimes we don't know what's going on with people. So you've got to be able to read the room, or more accurately, read the person. Okay? When you hear fear because you are scared is different from fear because you are cautious. So is it fear or is it that the person is cautious? Do you understand? They're different, they're very nuanced. So emotions are very nuanced, and there's a whole range of emotions. So we need to be familiar with them for it to begin to have emotional intelligence. Okay. So I think that's what emotional intelligence is. From what we talked about, essentially what you can know then, therefore it's about how it captures how you feel about yourself, how the other people around you feel, but it's a skill, you're learning it, and you've got to be sensitive. It requires a great deal of sensitivity, because you now have to understand, identify, use, understand, and manage. Managing is key. I tell people emotions are not bad. No emotion is bad. Anger is not bad. Sadness is not bad. The emotion that will lead you to cry is not bad. How do you manage it? That's what is key. Okay? So, maybe I want to just move on to the next slide here. I hope that we're all settled with this. One more thing I'll say about the ability to identify, use, understand, and manage emotions in relation to emotional intelligence is that it's like, you know what the FBI is, right? Like in America, it's the Federal Bureau of Intelligence, or like the CIA, Central Intelligence Agency. That's the intelligence. It's insights, you know? So when you're able to identify the emotions and understand them, it gives you insight so that you actually use them right. If you don't have that insight, you might mislabel or misuse the emotion, whether yours or that of another person. Now, of course, emotional intelligence is not about your interests, it's not about your general, intelligence and all that. Also, and I highlighted the two at the bottom, it's not your personality. The fact that somebody was angry today you met them doesn't mean they're an angry man. Because sometimes we look at people, or we interact with people, or we assess people based on where we meet them at a point in time. Don't label anybody because of what you meet, how you meet them at a point in time. Like we know, it may be coming from somewhere. Another thing too, with regards to your own emotional intelligence, is that it can change, you can develop it, or you can dumb it down if you refuse to use it. And what I find is that a lot of people who are in an industry where those things I mentioned happen, where people just don't want to be labeled emotional, they try to dump their emotions down. They try to just appear like they're just strict. And that's how you get some leaders like that. They believe that's the way to rise, because they believe they have to show strength, they have to be strong, they have to be like this or like that. Then they dump their feelings down. They don't want to engage with people on that level or engage with their teams. They just want to be like this. And sometimes that then results in dumbing down their emotional ability, their emotional intelligence, and indeed their ability. So just remember that your results, your emotional intelligence status can change over time. Okay, so why is emotional intelligence for your career, is it going to have any impact on your career? Will it harm your career? Can it, why? Anyone want to give me a few thoughts? Is there any way, how can it harm your career? I mean, what's the big deal? You carry your emotions on the inside. If you want to show, you show. If you don't want to show, you don't show. How does it affect your career? Let's see if we can get two answers. Examples of how good or bad emotional intelligence might affect your career. Anyone? All right, please go ahead. I see someone with a hand up. Gideon.
Right. Mm. Okay. One thing with emotions are technically and logically contagious. So if you carry a negative kind of emotion in the inside of you and you do not work on it, anywhere you go, you definitely pass it to people. Just like you said from the beginning of the class, you cannot give what you don't have. So because the emotions you carry are negative, anywhere you go, that is what you will give. So in the workplace, because you carry that negative emotion, you definitely pass out negative attitudes, and nobody will want to accommodate that, though some people might give into it, but most people will not take that. So for your emotion can mar uh, the goal of an organization, and it can build it. So if it is negative and you fail to work on it, definitely it will affect the team work, because you definitely have to work as a team with other people. So if you are negatively uh uh let me say oriented, definitely you have to pass that to your team people, and it may not be palatable. So the organization might feel, okay, it's better to just lay you off. But if your emotions are positively inclined, in fact, people want to work with you, because your emotions will serve as a motivation to them. It will help them to want to work more. They will have that thirst to work with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gideon. Excellent response. And I even have a good example that I'll tack on to that very soon. But let's hear from one more person. Anyone else? I want to hear more voices on the call.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, Anita, go ahead.
Okay, so we know in the corporate world, we know that there are usually favors, better promotions, right? So those are not only influenced by how hardworking you are. It could also be influenced by your emotional intelligence, how you're able to respond to things, how you're able to respond to people. So for me, and I mean not just for me, in general in the corporate world, promotions, favors, rewards, aside salaries, which is, I mean, constant, emotional intelligence and hard work go hand in hand in gaining all those things. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Anita and Gideon, for that. Those two excellent responses. And let me add something on top of that. Do you know that hard work can only take you so far in an organization? At the very best, they'll say that person is an excellent individual contributor, and they will leave you there to be working on your own. And for you to be an individual contributor with bad emotional intelligence, and they say just stay, you have to be so good that they just really don't want to lose you. So they say just stay and be doing individual contribution in your space. But to achieve leadership, to grow, like you guys have both said, you need emotional intelligence. Shall I tell you that 80% of people's failure to rise in an organization, the research says that up to 80% of your failure for growth, promotion, or whatever career derailment people face is due to a lack of emotional intelligence, or due to poor emotional intelligence. Maybe not a lack, but poor emotional intelligence. And I was going to give you an example. So there's a guy I know, he's in C-suites, top executive management in an organization. But something that everybody in his organization knows about is that he's not the smartest. So that organization, they're taking a lot of smart people, but they know he's not the smartest. They know that when he begins to ask questions, it's really his team people that put it together, because he's just not the smartest. But I tell you that his people skills are up there. His people skills are, he can relate with anybody in the organization, top to bottom, at their level. When the new joiners are there, when he's talking to the top guys, he knows exactly how to manage each group of people so that he's meeting their needs. When one group of people is saying, hey, we need more money, and the organization is saying we don't have money, he's the first person to say, guys, how else can we make this particular group of people feel what they're looking for? And he's the first person to be able to tell you that. I'm constantly where everybody, because human beings, we tend to compete thinking, I want to show I'm smart, I'm hardworking, and that's what a lot of people want to show. This guy will just be there on his emotional intelligence path, and he's just on his people, using his people skills, and that just keeps elevating him. He gets the work done. If emotional intelligence is poor, what's going to happen? The example I think it was Benjamin gave earlier on of somebody that couldn't really work with a lot of people, who was just on his own, he will have poor interpersonal skills. Because after spending 10, 12 years in an organization, and you have not really been interacting in the right way with the people, how are you going to be promoted in that organization? And I'm not talking about going to look for who I will make like me, who I will do favors. No. Be present when you're having conversations. When you say good morning, mean your good morning. Good morning. How are you doing? Are you okay? You see it in the person's eyes. You're looking at them. Are you okay? Then you have a conversation, you know? Or you're not the person who is always coming with last minute work and expecting that, yeah. Are you paying attention to the signs and what's going on? Interpersonal skills will be affected if your emotional intelligence is not on point. You won't be able to work in a team. And then worst of all, because remember when we talked about emotional intelligence, we said it starts with inside you, recognizing and being able to manage your own emotions. When there is a change, and what is the one thing that is constant in life, as the saying goes, is change. Change will come, change will happen, change will be a surprise. You will be all over the place, unable to, like, you know, when change happens, you need an anchor. You need to be able to move forward with the rest of the organization. You will not have that anchor. You will not be anchored and then in a good position to move forward. And then when that happens, how are you going to get leadership in your organization? How are you going to be the person that will be promoted? It's not going to happen. Do you understand? Or at least there will be people, you know, not everybody can be promoted. Some organizations, there's only one MD, there's only one of certain roles, and everybody is aspiring to go into those roles. So yes, it's going to, the poor emotional intelligence has a really high impact on your career. And the other things, and you can see when you begin to look at it, the things that when they then looked at those that failed, 80% it was due to, or that failed to grow, 80% was due to poor emotional intelligence. Then those that actually grew, it was based on good emotional intelligence, how they handle frustrations, how they deal with a diverse range of issues that they have. They are able to actually do that. And they're able to manage their own emotions. Understand that managing your emotions doesn't mean you don't have emotions or you don't feel. You do, but you know how to manage them. And then you can manage your social skills. Emotional intelligence, your level of emotional intelligence impacts your social skills. So if you want to grow, you absolutely need emotional intelligence. Now, we talked a little bit about how it impacts your smarts. What does it mean? Are they the same thing? They're different things, okay? You can be very smart, and being very smart and having a high IQ, okay, is important for you very early in your career. You come in, you have a high IQ, you're able to show and build your technical skills, but you must move from there, like guys, you guys know it. You must move from there to be able to relate to the people you've come into the same corporate ecosystem with, so that you can grow. You need to now be talking about the networking. You need to be talking about how you are responding to them and interacting with them. It's no longer about your literacy and numeracy skills. If there's a book that's called "What Got You Here Won't Get You There," I think it's a book or it's a saying, you know, that when you enter an organization, and it's essentially what it's saying is that you enter an organization, the skills, what got you here is your IQ. What's going to keep you here or make you grow is your EQ. So that's how they work together. They are related, but it's your IQ that brings you in. The IQ is always going to be there. If you're a smart person, you're always going to be smart. But how we know that you have grown is when we now see your EQ. And that's the growth. And because if you want to be able to manage people, remember, you're going to come in and meet people. You're going to come in with people. How will you manage them if your EQ has not grown? So your EQ is emotional quotient, just like IQ is intelligence quotient. And emotional quotient refers to your emotional intelligence. So your EQ has to grow. Your emotional intelligence has to grow. One thing I want to say is, it's not about perfection. It's about growth. It's a process. It's a journey. So when you hear things like this and everybody's thinking, how do I get the emotional intelligence, this and that? Guys, it's growth. It's a process. So as long as you remember that and you're actively trying to grow, you will be fine. You will make mistakes along the way. Everybody makes mistakes along the way. but you will be fine as long as you're actually intentionally trying to grow. Okay. Now, I think I've also even given the next slide away, because the next question was going to be, is my emotional intelligence fixed? Okay, because I've given it away, I'll say very quickly, no, it is not fixed. But let's hear from you. What are ways you think you can grow your emotional intelligence? Okay, and I want 5 answers this time. How do you think you can grow your emotional intelligence? So remember, we talked about emotional intelligence, awareness of your own emotions, managing your own emotions, awareness of others' emotions, and your relationship with others, your interaction with others. How can you grow your emotional intelligence? Let's hear 5 people. We're 34 on the call, so let's hear 5 people. Oh, no, we're like more than all. We are 37 on the call. Great. So I want to hear from 5 people.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Please go ahead.
My name is Aderonke. Oh, we can grow our emotional intelligence by making better decisions and thinking before we speak.
Okay. By thinking before you speak. Thank you. Because your emotional intelligence absolutely impacts your decision making. So if you want to make better decisions, one thing you can do is think before you speak. So, and I like that, Aderonke, but I'll ask you one more question. What do you think about before you speak in relation to growing your emotional intelligence?
Sorry, can you come again?
Yeah. So I said I agree with you that your emotional intelligence impacts your decision making, and to make better decisions, one of the things you should do is to think before you speak. So if you're trying to grow your emotional intelligence and you want to say I should think before I speak, when you say think before you speak, what do you mean? What are you thinking about?
You process whatever you want to say, if it won't hurt who you're talking to, or if you won't regret whatever you want to say in the long run. So you need to process your thoughts before you put whatever you want to say out there.
Thank you. Excellent. You need to know your audience. What am I going to say to this group of people? Or what am I saying to this person? How is it going to impact them? That's excellent. Think before you speak in relation to your audience. Okay. Thank you. I see Martha and Anita have their hands. Okay. Martha, go ahead. Is this a ladies taking the day today, this afternoon? Sorry, in this question. Is it for the ladies? Okay. We'll hear from the gentlemen as well. Martha, please go ahead.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Yeah, like you likely said, emotional intelligence is not fixed. And because we've laid that foundation that it's not fixed, then we'll also come up with the thought of being that empathy, putting yourself in the shoe of that person. Once you have this thought of, if I were in that shoe, how would I react? Then I think before you speak, you have to put yourself in that person's that empathy should be there. And once that empathy is there, you be careful of what to say so that you don't hurt the person. But rather
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Martha. And guys, permit me to, because I agree with everything you said. I'm a lawyer. You know I'm a lawyer, right? And you've heard the phrase devil's advocate. So we push in these conversations. So Martha, I agree with you completely. I do. I have one question for you. So let's say you are in a situation where the person has done something wrong, and you've put yourself in the person's shoes, and you understand that they've done something wrong that has impacted the organization. What do you do with emotional intelligence? How do you manage that with empathy?
The people understand that what they did was wrong. One thing is to accept your fault. Since that person accepts his fault, that yes, what he did was wrong, the next thing that will come in will be how can we now solve it? Then this person will have to find a solution on how to solve it before as a way forward.
Okay. Thank you, Martha. I pushed you a little bit, and you're absolutely right. And one thing I want to add about empathy is that empathy understands because it puts itself in those shoes, even if it doesn't agree. Okay? Understanding and agreeing are two different things. It's like when you say, so ladies, maybe some of the guys will hear some of the things that we talk about. When you say forgive but don't forget, I have forgiven but I have not forgotten. So they will not do it to you 2 times. You understand? Empathy understands, even if it doesn't agree. And it's very, very important because people think that with empathy, you will do whatever the other person wants. Not necessarily. Once you understand, you can interact with the person in a way that says, I truly understand. I can interact with them in a compassionate manner. And yet, what must happen, because you must then retain your objectivity. That's true empathy. Okay? But thank you. That was excellent. Anita, please go ahead.
Okay. One way is being an active listener. Simply put, listening to understand rather than listening to respond.
Excellent. And that's one of the hardest things for people to do. We often listen to respond. We always have what we want to say in our minds, and we're just waiting for them to finish talking so we can lay it out. But excellent. If you listen, you will actually get. And let me ask you, Anita, being an active listener, if I say being an active listener is endangered today, what is endangering it? What do you think for instance, might be endangering it today?
Not being patient.
Not being patient, exactly. Not being patient. A lot of the time today, we're really impatient. And something else, we're also very distracted.
Yes.
Today, we're very distracted. When you're on a call, you might be on a call at work or in a meeting at work, also on our phones. They've become such a part of us that sometimes we're not fully present. To be an active listener, you need to be fully present. Okay? So these are ways that be fully present. Whatever conversations you're having, be fully present. Thank you. Okay, we have 2 more raised hands. Okay, so let me see. Sorry, okay, Benjamin and then Ellie, and then we have to move on. Thank you very much. Benjamin, please go ahead. Benjamin? Okay.
Sorry, I was muted. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay. The question you asked, how do we improve our emotional intelligence? First of all, we looked at it from the beginning, awareness of one's self based on your interaction with others. Then another way again to improve our emotional intelligence is to have this kind of unbiased, attention, and to avoid prejudice. That assumption that what is it coming, all those things. So if one would take conscious effort to look at himself, definitely you are the one carrying the body. You need to know and be aware of yourself. And how do we get aware of ourselves? You need to study the environment. How do people interact with you? Definitely, if you see people do not come close to you, then you should know that something is wrong. You hear what I'm saying? And if you see somebody that people are always coming to him, something is attracting them. So for me, if I see things happening like that, I have to ask myself questions, then take conscious effort. In fact, I can even go to the extent of sending a feedback form that people should unbiasedly, speak what they know about me. What do you think I should put down? Friends like that, they'll be able to do that. So these are ways I can improve my emotional intelligence.
Thank you, Benjamin. That's an excellent response. And I like what you said, because, when you talked about being unbiased and avoiding prejudice, every single one of us has our own prejudices and our own biases. Every human being has it. It sounds like, no, I don't. No, I'm not biased. Yes, you are. You think because of the way you think is already shaped in a particular way. So, but you can overcome it. And I'm not saying it's a bad way. I'm saying that when you're dealing with matters, you have to, like Benjamin said, step back, think. And like I think like Ronke said, you think first. When I call it the power of the pause. The pause is very powerful. When you step back, sometimes your values, your beliefs have already trained you to think and address situations in a particular way. But there's multiple ways any situation can be addressed. And when you allow yourself to pause and then really hear, all of these things now, they now begin to come together. You really listen, you really put yourself in the other person's shoes. At that time, your response may begin to take a different shape, as opposed to if you just went with your natural instinctive response, which is shaped by you, who you are, your culture, your I come from the north. In the north, we squat maybe to greet elders. We don't necessarily kneel down. We don't necessarily say sister, brother, like like Yoruba people do, Yoruba people say sister, this, brother, this to someone who's like 2, 3 years, in fact, 1 year older or 2 years older. They say, I'm the whole 2 years. And 2 years, you're almost 4 years, you're almost twins. 4 years, then they jokingly, they'll say, you can marry that one. Now that one is your husband, is somebody. But in Yoruba land, 4 years is a big gap. Imagine. But coming from the north, like, I married a Yoruba man. So when I got to the family, the first time I met his sisters, his elder sisters who are like 3, 4 and more years older than me, I was calling them by name. Because when I now saw my Yoruba sister-in-law, who had been brought up in that culture, calling them sister, this, that I knew that I had to adjust, because my background, my way of doing things was completely different. But all of these feed into how you think. I like that. Sorry, let me also build on the self-reflection. It's important. The getting feedback is extremely important. In organizations, they do a 360. When you get a 360, you might be shocked where things are coming from, what people are perceiving if you are not doing self-reflection. So your self-reflection is also very, very important. Thank you. And Ellie, you're next. Please go ahead, Ellie.
Hi guys, I'm Elishiba from Kenya, and is how to improve your emotional intelligence. I'd say first is to be self-aware about what you are really feeling at the moment. Don't be vague with your emotions, the positive and the ugly emotions. First be introspect on how you're feeling, and then from there internalize on how to go about what you're feeling, and also be positive to feedback. Especially it's hard when it comes to emotions, but be open to listen to feedback from other people. That makes you so much better on how to treat people and how to go about situations. Thank you.
Very much, Ellie, and I agree with you, especially when you talked about you need to be honest with yourself when you're doing your self-reflection. Sometimes we don't want to think about, we want to think we're all that, and you are. Everybody is. Everybody's got the great about them, the good about them, and the not so good. Because that's why there's opportunity for improvement in all of us. So I encourage you, like Ellie has just said, you need to be honest with yourself in your self-reflection. So guys, first of all, thank you very much to everyone who's spoken. You've given us some of the ways you can improve yourself, and you are all absolutely correct. Thinking before you speak, put yourself in other people's shoes, be an active listener, develop your self-awareness, and avoid prejudice. Go out of your way to avoid your personal prejudices in your interactions. And then, of course, in your self-reflection and being open to feedback, you must also be honest with yourself. And I will add just a couple more ways that you can improve your emotional intelligence. Now, guys, I'm sure that we've heard a lot about journaling. People don't like it. People think that this journaling is one wishy-washy thing. Journal your emotions. Because remember, we talked about fear and what may be underlying fear, maybe something different, and it may go all the way to something, or what may be making you happy. It may be about the optimism and anticipation of something. It may be a sense of pride. Once you just set yourself a time, say for the next 30 days, I will intentionally, this is how you begin to recognize your own emotions. I will intentionally journal about what I'm feeling through the day. Even 5 minutes at the end of the day, how was my day? How did I feel today? I also write a little bit, and I have an article which is talking about how some days are just excellent in how they make you feel. But you need to dig deep, because once you begin to need to get to how they make you feel to understand it, that's how you begin to develop your self-awareness. So journal it. That then drives your self-reflection, and it's a form of recording your emotions so that you can look back and try and understand your behavior. Because once you begin to figure out how you felt, you can begin to see the link between how you were feeling and how you behaved. You then see your emotional intelligence at play. Okay, so that's very important. We've already talked about feedback. Of course, I'm a coach, and while this is not marketing, you can work with a coach, because sometimes it's the process of working through things and talking through things that really helps, right? Sometimes, and I encourage, one tool I encourage people to use, I use a lot with my clients, is to use a mind map. Just draw a circle: today, happy, sad, and then draw from there what happened, what caused it, what are the linkages, and then you can see them. So it just helps your mind declutter and gives you a lot of clarity. So I think those are some really key things. Now, we are kind of where I thought we would be after 1 hour, and we don't have much more time, but I have something on screen that I'd like to give us a few minutes to do. I'm going to put something on screen, and it's a brief self-assessment. Remember the tips we talked about today, guys? Be honest with yourself in your assessment and give yourself 1 mark for each of these questions. Something you can do in like 2 minutes. So let's go. If your answer is yes, sorry, give yourself 1 mark. If your answer is no, then we know that we have some work to do. But I want us to do an overall scoring and see how this goes. So we're taking a few minutes to, and then I want to see some scores in the chat. And then yeah, we'll have a conversation. We'll see what we need to do after that. But 2 minutes, please go ahead and go through these questions and answer them for yourself. No, you're giving yourself 0 marks or no marks. If your answer is yes, you give yourself 1 mark. The scores are beginning to come in. Okay, let's see how many answers we have. We have a 13. I want to interact more with different people. Sorry, thank you. I didn't see that before, but yes. We have an 18. Hey, we have some experts in the room. All right. 18. Okay, let's go. You guys, I'm going to step down for you to take this class next time. Let's go. We have a 12. Okay. I can see 1, 2, 3, 4 answers out of 36 or 35. So I'm waiting for 32. Okay, number 5, 13, 17, 16. Okay. 15. Okay. Let's get them coming in some more. Okay. Just because of time, and thank you very much to everyone who's shared. I've seen some really, really, really high scores, which is great. I don't know you personally. The important thing is that you were honest with yourself in answering these questions. Now, one thing I will say is that most people in reality fall between 8 to 13. That's average. 8 to 13 is the average individual normally where you find people. Above that, it means that people are intentionally taking steps to actually to develop their emotional intelligence. But when we do that, you normally find people between 8 to 13. Okay? So thank you very much, guys, for also sharing. I'm not necessarily taking anyone's thing. Now, the next thing that I'll do is a quick roundup before we watch a short video, which will kind of summarize what we're saying, because this is like my midpoint. This is the end of the first part. Now, in a nutshell, the various elements of emotional intelligence, which we've talked about today. And normally going into the next session, I'm not going to do that right now, is we would break this down. Self-awareness, that's a lot what we've talked about. Your self-awareness, how you identify it. When you're in a conversation with somebody, can you recognize that the conversation is about to go the other way before it gets there? How do you know that? Can somebody even answer that question for me? When you're talking with someone and it's about to become an argument, it's about to move from, and all of us have been in that situation where you're gisting and all of a sudden it's not gist anymore. What's going on inside you? Are there any pointers that you can recognize that can help you say, hey, this conversation is going the other way? Anyone? When the tone changes. Okay. Hanif, okay, that's interesting. Martha, please go ahead.
Good evening once again. When we're in a conversation and something is about getting wrong somewhere, the first thing you hear is the tone of that person. The tone just changed. The person is trying to be harsh. He's trying to control himself. Then his words, most of the times that person cannot really say nice words. He can't really control himself. He wants to express himself the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you. That's an interesting answer. And I see that that's the answer most people have. And you are right, but you're on level 2. There's a level 1 before it comes out, because something happens inside before it comes out. What's going on inside? Anyone who can think about it, and anyone? Can anyone describe what's going on inside? Because you may not know it for the other person, but you will know it for yourself before that tone changes.
Maybe the
expression or something.
Okay, their expression. Okay. Thank you. And what if it's you? Okay, their facial expression, which is great because body language doesn't lie, As Shakira said, something doesn't lie. Sorry if you guys know Shakira. But the body language changes. Martha's hand is up again, okay?
Oh, sorry, I wanted saying the expression.
Oh, the expression. Okay, great. Guys, I want you to think back to the last time you had an argument with somebody. A normal conversation became an argument. What was going on inside you? Leave the other person now. You. At what point did you join the argument? Or, whether it was the other person that first change their tone or their expression. What happened inside you before your expression changed, before your tone changed? What happened inside? If you think back, maybe at some point you even found yourself breathing high, like there was a quick sense of panic, anxiety. There was some chemical shift, emotional. Now that was now actually an emotional shift inside you in that conversation. Before exactly, there was a feeling that changed in that conversation before your face, before your voice changed. Think about it. And that is why that pause is so important. Because if you can recognize that chemical shift, you are so empowered to be able to manage and direct the rest of that conversation. Whether it's a conversation with a coworker, with with your partner, your spouse, or with your bosses. And even if you might sense the tone, like somebody said, if you're somebody that notices things, even your boss, they may not have started shouting, but something has changed inside the tone. And then inside you feel it before you even talk. You felt it. If you can, that's the point. That's the point at which you need to hey, I need to step up here and not react. Because if you allow that to just go, the likelihood is that you will either go into one emotion or the other, and it's not likely to be a positive emotion. Depending on who you're interacting with, it may be a boss. You have excellent points to raise, but because of what's coming out from them, that shift has happened inside you. You take the side of fear. Let me go and mind my business. The company is your business. The place you are working so that they'll make good profits and pay you salary and pay you bonus and you get good promotion. It's your business. That's the point at which I say, I've said my own. They didn't want to hear me. It may be time to step back, because again, remember that you use the insights to then decide, how do I respond? And then lots of responses. Your response, if you actually realize that you're wrong, maybe like, okay, I'm sorry. You step away. Your response may be, okay, let me step back and bring this conversation back another time. Let me go and prepare better for this conversation because I know what I am saying. You are confident in what you are saying, and that will affect you in a different way. Or your response might be, let us be the sons of wrath and fight together and burn this bridge and scatter this table, But that point, where that change, that shift inside you, is the point you must be able to recognize in any relationship, in any interaction. And even if it's an interaction between a male and a female, who are about to go from talking stage to the next stage, there's that shift. And if you think back to when you met whoever you're with now, for those of us who are married or those of us who are in relationships, there was a shift. And you knew about that shift before he proposed. Whether you pretended when he proposed that, oh my God, you were so surprised that you were crying and all that. You felt that shift inside and knew this thing is more serious than just talking stage before it happens. So you've got to recognize your emotions so that you react properly or you respond appropriately. Because if you sense that shift, even in the person, and you know what? If you're present, like somebody talks about being an active listener, if you're present in your relationship with that person and you sense that shift, and if it's somebody you didn't intend to pass talking stage with, you know that this is the time to stop. If you know that these things I've seen in this talking stage, it can't work, that is the time to stop. Because if you allow it to continue, when the person is reacting somehow to the heartbreak, it's not your fault. You have the right to feel the way you felt, but you could have handled it better. So self-awareness, that's key. Of course, your self-awareness leads to your actions, which is how you manage yourself, your social awareness, how you can read the room and read others, and then of course how you can manage your relationships. Now at the very bottom, there's one extra square with in white that says positive impact on others, because that is the true test of leadership. How your actions, your words impact others. That's the true test. Whether it's leadership in your family, leadership in your church, or your religious community, or your mosque, or leadership in your workplace, it's how you impact others. And I think it was maybe Gideon, when you were speaking earlier, you alluded to it. If you are somebody who is always carrying the weight of the world to work. You will bring the team down. I'm not saying people don't have problems, they do, but you need to handle your problems or whatever is going on with you. Work may be the place to handle it, and you find a way to handle it and manage it, because that's the self-management, so that it doesn't bring back down other aspects of your work. The issues may be in finances, the issues may be in they may be in work, they may be in your personal relationship with your spouse or your loved one. You must handle it. If not, what happens is the other aspects of your life also come down. And of course, you guys know that we have many aspects of life: financial, spiritual, career, educational, all of those, intellectual. We have many aspects of life. There are many areas of your life. So how you handle what's going on in one area, your self-awareness, your self-management, impacts you overall, and impacts how you show up in your social awareness and your relationship management. So everything is connected because you are one indivisible being. Okay. All right. Now, I have a short video that I wanted us to play because, before we do that, sorry, Harry, before we do that, I'll just take us a little bit far so that we can look at some of the common emotions that people may feel in common roles at work. And I'll do that from slide 42. Yep. All right. So I love that somebody talked about guilt as an emotion before, because when you're the leader of an organization and you're the one who is charged with decision making, it's a heavy responsibility. It impacts people's lives, and you need to rely on other people. So you've got to work with people you can trust. You are accountable. You must lead the organization. You have to be inspiring and energizing. And honestly, sometimes it is tiring. So sometimes when you see your leaders behaving, sometimes they are tired, because they have to do all this all the time. And some of the common emotions they or you as a leader need to be aware of is emotions like anxiety, fear, guilt, depression, caution. Guilt when you make the wrong decision, because sometimes they do make the wrong decisions. No matter how much we want to shout like, oh, he's a great leader, he is. Doesn't make him a bad leader, but sometimes leaders end up making the wrong decisions. Okay? Now, I want to ask now, and I want some answers now before I go on. If you're a manager or a supervisor, and you know that how you behave at the workplace, or how you show up as a manager or supervisor at the workplace, or a workplace leader to some level, when your people report to you, it influences how people perform. It influences how people, when we talk about the work environment, the manager, I have a book titled, It's the Manager, because 70% of the emotions and the feelings in your workspace are driven by the manager, the leader of that workspace. What are some emotions that managers and supervisors tend to feel, or that they need, if you like? Some that they may feel, they may be susceptible to, or that you need them to feel too sometimes. What do you need from them? Answer is somehow on the slide. So that's expo. Okay, I know we have 8 minutes left, so I'll just try and speak to this part a little bit. It's firm and caring. If you are leading people, your emotional intelligence has to be turned on to be firm and caring. Remember when we talked about empathy? See things from their view, but be objective. If they've done things, they've done things in the wrong way, or they've done something wrong that is impacting the organization, you have a responsibility to the organization. But who is the organization? The company is not alive. It's everybody, every other person, every other colleague who is depending on that company for, whatever output or whatever outcome you need to get. Who is depending on you to be fair? Who is depending on you to ensure that things happen the way they should happen? So your interaction with the person, yes, you've got to be caring, you've got to be empathetic, you've got to show compassion for their situations. And I kid you not, sometimes that compassion will come from your own pockets as a good manager. But you then also need to be firm, because you don't help people by not by allowing them to get away with not upholding the rules. It's difficult. You've got to find the balance, and there will be times when you need exceptions. You know, when you must make exceptions. So when you need to make an exception, then of course, whatever system you have for either recording or getting that exception approved, do so as may be necessary. You know, but you've got to be firm. You've also got to be caring as a manager and a supervisor. And sometimes what you will feel is overwhelmed, because most of the time supervisors, they get the fire from the top and they get the fire from under. So they're like in the middle. So if you're in a supervisory position, well done. And everybody just says, they'll just say, he's the manager, he's the supervisor, it's their fault, it's this. The people below are saying, you're not getting them what they want. The people above are saying, these people are the problem. Sometimes it's tough. But if you've got the right level of emotional intelligence, you can find ways to manage up, because you know there's that thing about managing your boss and managing up as well as manage down. And that's the best place to grow your emotional intelligence, the best level at which you grow it. Okay. Now, if you are a team leader, if you're a team leader, well, team leads, maybe not managers, supervisor now, project managers on projects, sometimes you will find yourself frustrated. Who has ever felt frustrated and held back because you're ready to just go, and you feel being held back? Or you're an organization, you say, this place, they just backbite too much, they just gossip too much. What's that? Is a toxic workplace. That's what people say. Oh, toxic workplace. Well, who are the people? It's the colleagues interacting with each other and interacting positively or negatively, because they have either great emotional intelligence or very poor emotional intelligence. But you know that the team is going to be susceptible to frustration, anxiety, suspicion. This one, because they're from the same place, they're always promoting. I mean, you will hear all these things. That's why your objectivity is key. And that's why you must also take feedback, because you must not give up the perception. Sometimes these feelings that people feel, they're driven by a perception, and a perception can be wrong or right, but a perception, somebody's perception is very often their reality. Does that mean, therefore, you have to do everything to change it? No. You make everything as plain as possible, and then, you know, it's up to them to either get the right explanation or stick with what they believe, because they come from their own bias. Now, as sales professionals, if you're a sales professional, you will often face difficult customers. Who has ever had a customer that has abused you from money to that? It happens. And that thing can also bring you down. And it is wrong, by the way. This is not an excuse for the customer. So let it be very clear. I'm not saying that anybody has the right to do this, but I'm saying that when it happens, you've got to be able to step away from that situation and know that all the curses you laid, it's not me. And you have to be able to do that in a professional and polite manner. Tough. Very, very tough. But you have to be able to do it in a professional and polite manner and avoid anger, avoid frustration, or manage your anger, manage your frustration and any anxiety that gives you. And then, you know, when you can end that situation with that, either pass it on to your supervisor or whoever else, or end that situation, you can then have a conversation at your workplace and figure out what other ways can we block, you know, people from treating us like this at work, because it's not acceptable. Not because I work here for my, you know, because this is the kind of thing I guess people to say, oh, is it because I'm here working? Oh, I want, you know, and then the workplace becomes where you don't want to be. No, that's not what anybody wants. But I can also tell you that if you are able to handle such situations in a professional manner, you are more likely to get your boss or somebody on your side when they say to step up and support you and say, hang on, even to the customer, say, I'm sorry, you cannot treat our staff this way. Please, can you step aside or come into my office, or they take that burden off you. But if you're able to manage it well, if they come to the shop floor and they meet you and the customer are fighting, the conversation will likely be very different. And this is why self-awareness, let me just say this too. This is why your self-awareness is key, because some people can make you feel so low that if you don't know who you are, you can carry the label they've given you. but you've got to start with knowing who you are. Develop your self-awareness. That's the key to, being able to manage your emotional intelligence. Okay. I feel like I've been talking a lot, so I think customer service, this can happen as well. With customer service, with technical professionals, your emotional intelligence, let me just speak on this one. With technical professionals, your emotional intelligence is more often impacted by stress. Managing stress is one key way of managing your emotions and your emotional intelligence. Because if you allow yourself to be too stressed, you will not be able to manage your emotions. When you are stressed, you are more vulnerable. And there are all the chemicals in the brain, the dopamine, and all of those chemicals in the brain respond to stress. So when they lower, the good ones lower, they make you open to all sorts of negative emotions. When the good ones are high, you're more likely to maintain your positive or your stable emotional state. So you must manage your emotional state, your stress, because with a lot of technical professionals, they interact a lot more with the equipment, and then they end up staying at work very long, and then that's where they get overworked and overwhelmed, and then they are now finding it difficult to then interact with people. I don't know if you've ever heard some people think, engineers are a bit socially awkward because they're always talking to equipment and not talking to people, that kind of thing. You need to manage your stress at the workplace. You need to also make time out to interact with people. I'm going to stop there. Harry, I'll ask you to please play our video just because of time, and so we can take a few questions. But thank you very much, guys. There's a lot we didn't go into today, like each of the self-awareness, self-management and all that. There's a lot, but thank you. It's because it's a very big topic. Harry, back to you.
Okay, yeah. So let me just play the video before. Okay, please, can you all see my screen?
Can see your screen.
Okay.
Career growth. We all want it. Career growth. We all want it. Whether that's a new role, responsibilities, or management opportunities, you know the skills you need to acquire to reach the next rung. But what if skills aren't enough? Consider this. People are changing their careers more than ever. Some say as much as 5 to 7 times in a lifetime. And with the rise of artificial intelligence and other technologies, the hard skills you're racing to learn might just become obsolete. But there's something else to focus on: emotional intelligence. It's the ability to have deep awareness of your own emotions and the emotions of others, and use this information to guide your thinking and actions. Research shows a person's emotional quotient, or EQ, can be a more effective indicator of potential success than their IQ. Not to mention all the other studies that show a correlation between EQ and qualities like leadership potential, employability, health, happiness, and even success with relationships. Thanks to research from psychologist Daniel Goleman, there are 5 categories of emotional intelligence. Self-awareness, the ability to understand your effect on others, play to your strengths, and admit your weaknesses. Self-management, being able to control your impulses and avoid acting rashly. Motivation, having the innate passion to challenge yourself and remain optimistic when the going gets tough. Empathy, not just listening to those around you, but really trying to understand their point of view. And social communication, the ability to manage relationships and productively express your emotions. It's obvious these are all great attributes to have, but what do they have to do with career growth? While new skills may only translate from one position to the next, emotional intelligence transforms you for the long haul. If you're feeling stuck in your career, consider EQ. No matter your next move, it'll distinguish you as an effective leader.
Okay. Okay, so That's the video. Let me stop presenting. Okay, so question and answer. So question and answer. Please, if you have question, you can. If you can't talk, please do to put it in the chat section. But if you can talk, please, you can raise up your hand. Then we are just going to follow the order. Okay, yeah, Mohammed, you have a question. Is it Mohammed? Moma, okay. Please can unmute yourself and ask your question. Adlai.
Okay, sir. Good evening, everyone. I have the question on this emotional intelligence which you have touched. My question is, in what ways can empathy enhance team collaboration or reduce workplace conflict?
So how empathy can enhance team collaboration? Is that what I heard you say? And improve workplace conflicts? Was that the question?
Yes, ma. Yes,
That's
ma.
the question.
Okay. So the thing is, it's important to first understand the difference between empathy and sympathy. You know, we talked a bit about empathy, the ability to put yourself in the other person's shoes, but then you must be able to also know that it's one thing to put yourself in their shoes and take action, but not necessarily, it doesn't have to be the action that they want. And I'll tell you why that's important, because you're dealing with a team. So I asked someone who talked about empathy earlier, like, what if the person has done something wrong, but you have to put yourself in their shoes? How do you deal with that? Because you must be objective. If you support wrong, you have alienated the rest of your team and they won't trust you. And if your team doesn't trust you, that's it. A team without trust is scattered. So empathy, and you need to understand, empathy is different from sympathy. Empathy is very objective. You put yourself in the other person's shoes. You understand, but it's not only one person's shoes. It's a team of 10, for example, it's in the shoes of 10 people. There are 10 eyes on you. You must be fair. You must deal with objectivity. So your empathy has got to be objective. It's got to be unbiased. It's got to be empathy that allows you to choose what is best for the team, even while you understand the actions or situations of the individual with an issue and where everybody else is. I would also say that if you've got high emotional intelligence and a high sense of empathy, you can actually also read the entire team. And maybe one way, for instance, so we talked about where, okay, what if somebody has done something wrong and you need to address that, but you need to do it in an empathetic manner. It's how you're interacting with him, but you can't just say, okay, because I've put myself in his shoes and I know why he did it, he's okay. Because if not, the rest of the team will not trust you. It's not okay. But you know what? What else? Is there a way you can also then bring the rest of the team together to help him if it was a situation where they genuinely needed help? So those are some ways that empathy works. But I think what's important is that it is an understanding of your situation, understanding of this situation, and of everybody involved, every stakeholder, not just the main character, but every stakeholder, which is also the rest of your team. That's the best way to promote collaboration. And it's either you do it in your reactions or your responses to what has happened with that individual, or how you then bring the team together to help them also understand, how you share your insights from that empathy with them. I hope that helps.
Okay, Adlai, I guess your question has been answered, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
How are you doing?
Please, if you guys have questions, you can simply raise your hands. And if you can't talk, you can simply make use of the chat to drop your questions. And I'm simply going to read it out from there. Yeah, Abdullah, I was asking if your question have been answered.
Yes, sir. The question has answered. Thank you very much for this contribution, sir.
Okay, thank you. Please, questions. Okay, we have been listening since, and I believe we have been taking notes as well. So it's time for us to ask questions to polish everything which we have learned.
I hope the fact that there are no questions doesn't mean it was boring, but it means that people really understood, whether there are no more questions, that people really understood and were able to connect with what we did. But thank you.
Yeah, I guess so. Okay. Let me check the charts. I think there are charts here. Okay, so Anita says that she believes negotiation goes with emotional intelligence. How can one have these attributes, especially with superiors?
All right, Anita. Let's see. So, if I get your question, it's saying that how do you display or how can you use negotiation, especially when you're with your superiors? I can tell people one thing: it's by how grounded and how prepared you are when you come. Something that we often may not remember is that when you know okay, so let me put it this way. Each of us comes with different talents and skills. We all know different things at different levels. I might know something so well and see it from different perspectives. Remember, part of emotional intelligence is seeing it from different perspectives. Meanwhile, the other person you're talking to, who may be your superior, has his own perspective. So, how well do you know that person that you've worked with? Have you understood his emotional intelligence level? Have you understood his communication style? If you have done all that, it will inform you on how to approach him. You use that insight to develop your approach to him, and it's part of your preparation. But of course, you also have to come with a very persuasive argument. If he's somebody that sees the benefit for himself, show him the benefit for himself. If it's somebody that sees the benefit for the team, show him the benefit for the team. So you come well prepared, but also, if you understand that person, it then helps you to determine your approach. Let me give you one typical example. There are some people who may not be great in dealing with teams, right? Or with public sessions, for instance. If they are talking to a group of people, maybe they get flustered or somehow they just get off track and they don't know how to bring it home. And yet, those same people, if you get them in a room to have a discussion one-on-one, that is their area of strength. When they're in a room and you have been able to talk with them one-on-one, or they've been able to talk one-on-one, they're able to persuade and make everything open and clear. And by the time, so those kind of people, or if your boss is that kind of person or you are that kind of person, this is what you do. What's your plan? Have you planned that before you go to the team where you have to present, you have spoken one-on-one first with the stakeholders, with the boss? Do you understand? So that's exactly what you need to be doing. Your preparation needs to be all-encompassing. Technical, in terms of detail, in terms of accuracy, correct. Now, next is you focus on the person. How do I communicate best with this person? What I know of this person, what's his communication style? How do I communicate best with him? What's his level of EI? And then that directs your approach. Do you understand?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we have another question, and the question is: how do you handle and relate with a toxic leader with low EQ?
That's an interesting question. And unfortunately, a lot of organizations have allowed people with low EQ and who bring toxicity to the workplace to rise. But what's interesting is that those guys are not leaders. They're not leaders, they're managers. You know, there's a difference between being a leader and a manager. And as individuals, one of the things is we have to make up your mind. Do you want to be a leader or do you want to be a manager? Because when you are a true leader, you inspire people and it's how you interact with them, you know. But how do you work with a leader who has no, or with a manager in the organization who sits in a position of leadership with no emotional intelligence? Great question. I think that it takes a level of intentionality of you tracking, maybe similar to the last answer though, but where are his weaknesses? Because, you know, like if you were to do a 360 on him, what are his weaknesses? I have a situation, okay, so I'm working with a CEO of an organization now as a coach. And one of his issues is that he's very rigid, you know, and because he's very rigid, they have had several, he believes he's being principled, okay? And he has his principles, but he doesn't know how to be flexible. Now, this is a very interesting one because it's a strength to be principled, but you know, your strength can become your weakness, okay? Now, when you're leading people, you have to know that you must be flexible. And he said it is based on his principles. So the workplace is very tough for everybody now. So one exercise we're going through is identify your core values, your core principles. And you may need to identify this in that leader because that leader may be, you know, need to identify what are the triggers for him. But with this leader, this example I'm giving, he has to identify his core values and he cannot have more than 3 or 4 core values. There are plenty values. Pick the ones that you say, it is non-negotiable, I will not move on this point. And then when you're beginning to work with people, when he works with people now, his next step is you share with them upfront that, guys, this is who I am. I really stick to my principles, but on these ones, oh, I will not negotiate. But then when people bring other issues, you can then be flexible around it because you have people, you owe it to your people to be able to interact with them. Now, relate that to the toxic leader, except you're the one now who is looking at them and their EQ. What are their core triggers? And then how do you, 2 suggestions. One is, can you use one of the other areas that is not a trigger for them? If you've identified this is where they are tough and this is where they seem okay, how do you use the areas through your own emotional intelligence and insights? How do you engage with them through those areas that they are somehow okay to bring to their realization the other areas? There are some people who are not interested, understand that, and if it turns out they're not interested, then really it's about how best you work around that person. But if there's somebody who is reasonable and you're able to begin to bring out those things a little bit at a time, that's your inroad. Another inroad you can have is to identify someone that you can talk to. This is a very tricky one. And I would say you need to be very careful with it. Somebody that they listen to, but that can talk to them, or somebody who's really good at talking to people with that. Because again, we all have different skills and different talents. Some people are really good at talking to tough people. Some people are really terrible at talking to tough people. So one thing you can do is to identify someone who's really good, but make sure it's somebody that, you know, is not going to be, that you can trust. Let me put it that way. Someone that you can trust that would really understand and interact with that leader the right way. The other is to identify a few soft areas where they are okay and use those areas as inroads in your interaction with them. Sometimes you can then begin to get them to turn around and see things from a different perspective. And if by any chance you are in an organization where you have some authority or some ability to influence things, use some of the feedback tools, 360 degrees. Get your HR system to deploy those kind of tools so that leader can actually get the feedback. Nobody really likes seeing very bad feedback. Get that feedback and hopefully begin to think of how they can improve themselves.
Okay, Ma, thank you, Ma. Please, any other question? Do we have any other one? I guess that will be the last question that we are simply going to take for this section. Okay, so I believe there is no question. So, Mark, could you just take 1 minute to just like sum it up for us, like your final thought for us before we end this particular section?
All right. Thank you very much. First to say thank you to everyone who showed up. I know we had a bit of a snafu with the timing this morning, and I apologize as well. But thank you very much for still showing up for this session. Emotional intelligence is, you can't overestimate, you can never overhype the importance of having good emotional intelligence. The beauty of it is something that you can develop, but you develop it with your own intentionality. The first step, and it is the most important step, which is self-awareness, your self-reflection, and in an honest manner. You must be honest with yourself, and then knowing yourself. That does two things for you. It helps you know how you interact with others, but it also helps you to stay grounded, because the truth is sometimes you will also get feedback or reactions because other people, life is happening to them, things are going on. You will get reactions from them that may not be what you expect. They may not be positive, and they will impact you if you don't know yourself. So develop your self-awareness. If you didn't take anything else away from today, develop your sense of self-awareness, and with that you can build up into your interaction with others, how you manage relationships, and recognizing emotions and other things in other people. But for me, that's the foundation, and that is key to success in everything. So thank you very much. Thank you, Harry, and I wish everybody great success in your various careers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Ma. Thank you for sharing your time with us and your wealth of experience and knowledge with us. Please, guys, please, can we just use the clap emoji? Please, can we give her a flower? She really did great. And I believe each and every one of us here have learned a lot, a whole lot. So we have a lot of things to go back, do a lot of reflection on ourselves to see how we'll be able to improve, make sure I will be able to improve how we interact with people, how we relate with people, and otherwise. Thank you so much, Ma. But before that, so the Tech Startup program, we have a Tech Startup program that is currently going on. Okay, registration has started for the Tech Startup program. Registration has started for the Tech Startup program. So the Tech Startup program is a beginner-focused program with multi-track digital skills, and it's a program that is actually designed to introduce beginners to core digital careers. Okay, so this is a program that is designed to bring people into tech, those who are not into tech, those who want to learn digital marketing, those who want to learn front-end web development, who wants to learn mobile application development, or who wants to be designers of applications, like product designers, designers of product, designers of websites. So these are the courses that we are actually offering for the Tech Startup program. So you can learn from at the comfort of your home, anywhere you are in the world. The classes is 100% online. You have access to mentors, access to coaches. It's a live class, and the training is project-based. And at the end of the day, you get certification for it. Okay, so you can go ahead and simply follow the link, use the link on the screen to register, and you can share with your friends, you can share with your brothers, your sisters, those who are interested to register. So it's very flexible, whether they're in higher institution or they're in let's say secondary school and they are up to age of 16 and above, they will be able to join the training. So you can simply let them know about the Tech Startup program. And also next we are going to have effective communication webinar, which is coming soon on the 28th of this month. So please, guys, I want you guys to keep your eyes open for that. And we'll be bringing in more webinars to see how we'll be able to learn, improve ourselves. So Cedars is not just about equipping people with digital skills. We are also equipping people with soft skills as well. Soft skills that will help people to strive in the workplace, that will keep people, that will make them better person in the society, and also in their families, and also relationship as well. So, okay, so back to this. And for this particular section, Myself, I have learned a whole lot from this section, and I believe each and every one of us here have learned a whole lot. Thank you so much, my Lois. We are grateful. We at Cedars, we are so much grateful for this, and we are actually looking forward to hosting you again. Okay. Thank you so much, ma.
Thank you very much. Thank you to everyone.
Okay. Okay. So someone just asked a question. Okay. So I'm actually getting these things here. Ma, they say your section was very insightful, and okay, so a lot of positive these things. So please keep your feedback coming, and after the meeting, you guys are going to get a feedback form to give us feedback on how the webinar is, the things you learned from the webinar. So this would actually help us to know how we'll be able to like structure and come up with more webinar that is going to equip your professional and personal life as well. So we have come to the end of this webinar. Thank you so much, Ma, again, and thank you for every single person who actually make this a reality, who find their way into Okay, so the classes are evening class for the tech starter. Okay, if you want to reach out, you can reach out to me for more inquiries, and I'm simply going to respond to all your questions. If you have any questions regarding the tech starter program, you can ask, and you can as well follow us on our social media platforms to get more insight regarding the tech starter program. So this is my contact. I'm dropping it in the chat, so you can reach me on WhatsApp, and I can answer all the questions that you have regarding the training. Okay, so thank you everyone, and see you guys soon. Okay, yes, we'll make requests for the slide and we are going to make it available, and also the recording will be made available to everyone. So once it's ready, we are going to drop the link on our YouTube channel and we share it to all our communities, and we are also going to post it online in case you're not in our communities, so that you can simply follow the link and go through the webinar for those of us who actually miss it or who actually join halfway. So thank you guys, and see you guys later in our next webinar.